This is Pet Life Radio. Let's talk pets.
Hello and welcome to Working Like Dogs on Pet Life Radio. Thank you for joining us today. We're your hosts. My name is Marcie Davis, and my co-host is my trusty service dog, Whistle. And we're thrilled to be with you today to talk about our favorite subject, working dogs and working animals. And today, our special guest is Kat Urbigkit. And Kat is a writer and photographer, and she also keeps a flock of sheep in the Green River Basin area south of Yellowstone National Park. So gorgeous up there. And Kat is going to visit with us today about her latest book, Shepherds of Coyote Rocks, Public Lands, Private Herds, and the Natural World. So come right back after these quick messages as we welcome Kat to the show.
Sit, stay. We'll be right back after a short pause. Well, 4 to be exact.
It's DesignerPetSweaters.com. Hand-knitted designer sweaters for your precious pup or cool cat. Beautiful couture patterns for your pets, including custom-knitted formal wear, casual wear, yachting, and even sports-themed. Many designer pet sweaters include feathered tammy hats, top hats, and a lot of sparkle. Each sweater includes leg loops, front paw sleeves, and leash opening. Visit DesignerPetSweaters.com to order your 4-legged fashions today. Your pets will stay warm for the winter and be runway ready. Large or small, we fit them all. DesignerPetSweaters.com.
Let's talk pets on PetLifeRadio.com.
Welcome back to Working Like Dogs on Pet Life Radio. Hello, Kat, and welcome to the show.
Good morning, Marcie. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're so excited that you could be with us today.
And I'm excited as well, and I have to warn you right now that I have a 130-pound guard dog sleeping under my feet behind my desk here. So if you hear snoring, I will still be awake. It's just my assistant this morning.
Yeah, well, I have to tell you, I have a 70-pound assistant under my desk right now, Whistle. So they both may be snoring.
Very good. We keep good company.
Yes, we do. Well, tell us, how did you learn to practice the ancient tradition of sheep herding in Wyoming?
You know, I was actually a newspaper reporter, and I was doing stories, writing interviews about a sheep producer that was running about 3,000 head of sheep in 3 different bands in the National Forest area above Pinedale, Wyoming. And this family that runs sheep up there was having a lot of problems with both wolves and grizzly bears in coming into their sheep herds and killing sheep, but they had started using livestock protection dogs or livestock guardian dogs to guard the herds from these large carnivores, these big predators, and the dogs were amazingly effective. So anyway, that family eventually gave me some bum lambs, so I got to start with little orphan lambs that I had to bottle feed, and of course once I started my own herd, then I had to get the livestock protection dogs to help take care of them. So
yeah, and how did you go about getting those dogs?
Actually, my first livestock protection dog was a gift. It was a pup that was given to me by a friend of mine, another sheep producer, and I was pretty fortunate. His family had been using the dogs for about 30 years here in Wyoming, so they were actually really some of the first ones that were using them, and so my pup came out of a good working lineage. You know, it wasn't registered or anything like that, but absolutely years of experience in those bloodlines there. So
yeah, and tell us again, what kind of dog did you call that, Kat?
Well, they're called either livestock protection dogs or livestock guardian dogs, either one. But the breeds that we use, we mostly use the Turkish Akbaş or the Central Asian Ovcharka. And the reason why we're using those dogs, I mean, I think many people will be familiar, of course, with the Great Pyrenees dog. That's another livestock protection dog. And we actually use livestock, or the Pyrenees dogs here with our herd early on when we started, but our dogs were getting so many predators coming in that we really wanted kind of a more aggressive dog. So we went to a little more athletic and aggressive dog, especially we have bears and wolves that try to get into our herd. So our dogs have to really be athletic and and wanting to do their job and be somewhat aggressive. So these dogs are fabulous.
Yeah, because on the cover of your book, which is a beautiful photograph, I was wondering if that was a Great Pyrenees that was on the cover.
Actually, that's one of the Akbash dogs. The Akbash dogs are actually, some of them really look somewhat similar to the Pyrenees dogs, but they're not usually built as thick, and they're a little more athletic. You know, they're kind of more cut in the flank, like they're more suited to run. That kind of thing. Yeah.
It looks like a really athletic dog on the cover, which is beautiful. Which one is that one on the cover?
The one that's on the cover is actually Luv's girl. She's actually she'll be 9 years old this year. And she has been working her entire life out on the Wyoming rangelands. And she's outside with the herd today. So, and her daughter is the one who's snoring under my feet here. So.
And which one is that one?
The one that's snoring under my feet is Rena. So,
okay,
yes.
okay,
She's,
awesome.
Rena was the runt of the litter, so of course she ended up growing up to be this huge beast. You know, as often happens when you have a runt and you take it out of the litter to give it a little more attention, they recover very nicely.
Yeah. Well, tell us about some of the tasks that they have to do. I mean, how did you get them from puppies to actually being able to guard the herd?
Well, you know, fortunately, these dogs have been bred for thousands and thousands of years in places like Central Asia and in Europe to guard other animals, livestock species. And it doesn't matter. I mean, it was great. I got to travel throughout a bunch of Europe and Central Asia and actually saw the guard dogs in use. They were guarding herds of horses, cattle, there were cattle herds in Spain, sheep and goat herds in Bulgaria, and actually flocks of turkeys and chickens as well. So you can bond them quite easily to whatever species it is that you want to have guarded. And with us, it was great. I had some baby lambs at the same time that I got my first pups. So I just pretty much started bedding them all down together. The dogs are naturally attracted and curious about the lambs, and they just grow up side by side and develop such a close attachment. And now whenever we happen to raise a litter of pups, what we do is as soon as the mother dog goes into wherever she's going to have the pups, we usually line that natal den with wool that we've sheared off of our sheep. So there's actually, the puppies are actually bedded in that soft wool, and they're getting the smell of the sheep and everything before their eyes ever open. So, you know, they when they actually go out and meet a sheep for the first time, just in a matter of weeks, they're already associating those live sheep with that wonderful smell and comfort of the natal den. So it's kind of a natural process that is really, we're not doing anything new. We're just following along with things that people who live in close association with livestock and their dogs, that they've done it for thousands of years.
That's so beautiful. I mean, and that makes so much sense to really get them to marry and have a life together and to understand the importance of each other. That's so beautiful.
You know, it really is. It is an absolutely beautiful relationship, and I am so fortunate I get to see that relationship every day, and I am always stunned by how beautiful the relationship is. I mean, it's great. It's a cute thing to see a puppy go up and lick a lamb nose, you know, but then to see those animals and grow up together and become adult, productive working partners is just amazing. You know, these dogs, they're so gentle, even with the baby lambs, even as adult dogs, and yet they are so determined in protecting them and keeping anything that might threaten the herd out of the herd. You know, so they're really amazing animals.
Yeah, well, it seems like we think of nature as being so beautiful and serene, but actually it's very aggressive and there's that food chain, and so it does seem like it's a very difficult and challenging job that they have to be on the job 24 hours a day. How do they work like that? What is their work schedule?
You know, most of the time, the dogs are very busy at night. They patrol all night long because, of course, there's danger in the dark. And what they do, and it's funny, I probably cannot sleep unless I have that deep booming bark of a big guard dog outside. I mean, I need to hear that in order to be able to sleep because, I know that they're on duty. And so they work all night long, and they're usually the most dangerous part of the day, of course, is dusk and dawn. That's when predators try to come into the herd. And our herd in the area where we live, coyotes are really our constant predator. I see coyotes out here every day. Coyotes try to get into the herd. The dogs usually can intimidate the coyotes to stay away just by simply racing up towards them or chasing them with those deep barks. And these are very large dogs. The coyotes are maybe 30 pounds, and Rena, my biggest dog here, is 130 pounds. So, the dogs are absolutely intimidating, and they know that. But sometimes the dogs actually get into fights with whatever the predator is, physical confrontations. And they will absolutely fight to the death if they have to in order to keep the predator out of the herd. They do not give up. It's a pretty amazing thing. But, and then most of the time during the main part of the day, the dogs are usually just out sleeping on a hillside where they can see the sheep, or else they're sleeping in the middle of the sheep. So, a lot of people when they see these big sheep dogs out with the sheep, they're going, well, what are those dogs doing? They're just laying there. Well, that's what they need to do. They need to be present, and they can snooze all they want during the day because they have very active night lives.
Yeah. Well, I know that's what people tell me about Whistle. They're like, oh, he's sleeping, but he's always sleeping with one eye open, and he's always watching me to see if I need anything. So I can only imagine how they're really on duty, even though they are supposedly resting.
Yes. And, we're about to start our busiest time. We start lambing. Our ewes will start giving birth in mid-May. And that is really when the dogs prove their worth time and time again because, we lamb out on the range. So the sheep are out in the sagebrush, so they're finding their own spots to give birth and giving birth to these. A baby lamb is a tiny thing, maybe an 8-pound thing. They're very... it would be very dangerous time for them, especially their first 24 hours or so of life while they're really getting their legs under them and learning how to use them and before they're able to travel with the herd very well. So, but our guard dogs stay out, and as soon as a ewe goes into labor, one of the dogs will lay down with the ewe and watch over her, and often the dogs will actually keep their backs to the ewe so that the ewe won't feel that she's being watched. But they'll just be that constant presence there as the ewe is giving birth, and then as the lamb is born. And then our dogs also clean up the birth fluids or the birthing material that's left on the ground, which of course would be a really major predator attractant. Mm-hmm. So they actually they have another role there in kind of keeping our pastures cleaned up from the from predator attractants. So, and then my dogs, if a lamb gets separated, if the herd gets up to move off, one of the dogs will lay there with a lamb that is sleeping too soundly, that gets left behind, and the dog will stay with the lamb until I either come and find the dog, or the dog will try to get the lamb to follow it back to the herd. So it's amazing the things that they naturally know how to do.
That's so awesome. And how many dogs do you have? 4 herding dogs?
Yes, we have 4 of the guard dogs working, yes.
Okay. And how big is the herd?
About 300 head of ewes. So, and it really varies as to how many of these guardian dogs a sheep flock will need. If you've got a small farm where there's kind of secure pastures, you could perhaps get by with one dog with up to 100 head of sheep or something. But I have neighbors here that are migratory sheep operations that have 1,000 head of ewes in each one of their flocks, and they use anywhere from 4 to 8 or 10 guardian dogs with any one of those herds because of the number of predators that they encounter, and the types of predators that they encounter. We're really fortunate to live in western Wyoming. We're blessed with abundant wildlife populations, and of course, along with that, we have expanding predator populations, and that includes, mountain lions, black bears, grizzly bears, wolves. And each one of those things, we don't have frequent problems with them, but we have encounters with all of them. And so the guardian dogs, you really need a lot of them in some cases to keep your herd safe. And besides being pleasant to live with, they're really what keep our herd intact and, make it economically viable for us.
Yeah, they're a necessity. There's no question of that.
The best tool that we have.
Yeah.
Are guardian dogs. So, yeah.
Well, we are going to take just a quick break and hear some important messages from our sponsors, and we're going to come back and continue visiting with Cat Urbigkit. So come right back.
We'll be right back right after these messages. Stay tuned.
Molly, here's your dinner. Zeus, that's not your food.
Don't let that happen to your precious cat. Elevate your cat's eating experience with the Cat Tree Tray. The Cat Tree Tray keeps your cat's food off the floor and conveniently located on the cat tree. It's the perfect way to eat. It's a beautiful wrought iron tray that easily attaches to your cat tree and keeps dogs and other critters out of your cat's dish. A must for multi-pet households. There's a 6-inch tray for large bowls and a 4-inch tray for smaller bowls. Purchase your Cat Tree Tray today. Go right now to cattreetray.com. That's cattreetray.com. CATTREETRAY.com.
Let's talk pets
Let's talk pets
on Pet Life Radio.
Pet Life Radio.
PetLifeRadio.com.
Welcome back to Working Like Dogs on Pet Life Radio. We're visiting today with Kat Urbigkit, and she's talking to us about her amazing guardian dogs and how they work with her as a herder, as a sheep herder. Kat, do you do this full time now?
You know, it's funny. I'm a writer full time, but I write from my house here, so I am with the sheep every day. And part of my writing includes if I'm going out with the sheep, sometimes I'll throw the laptop in the truck and work on my next book from the truck while I'm watching over my sheep. So
That's perfect.
Yeah,
Perfect
so I
profession.
stay with them every day.
Yeah. Well, you said in the book that being a shepherd had become part of your identity. Can you explain what you meant by that?
You know, it's a wonderful thing when you develop an actual working relationship with animals. And I feel like I have a partnership with my sheep herd and the livestock guardian dogs that tend to them. At this point, I can't imagine really doing anything else. I guess I feel that animals are good for your soul, and these animals are certainly good for my soul.
Yeah,
So
well, I can certainly relate to that and appreciate that. Absolutely. Well, and it just sounds like, you know, as you were saying earlier, that they're just such a necessity in order to protect the herd and to enable you to shepherd that herd effectively, because without them, they'd be too vulnerable. They couldn't survive.
Right, you know, and it's just, I believe that there's been some research that's shown that people that have gone from just having sheep herds without livestock protection dogs and then to getting livestock protection dogs and having them working with their herds, their losses to predators are decreased by as high as 80%. I mean, that is a substantial percentage that would have impact your bottom line, you know. And to tell you the truth, our losses to predators, even in the area where I live in, where we have so many predators, our losses are almost nothing because of the livestock protection dogs.
That's wonderful. Well, that is so significant. Yeah, you cannot deny 80%. I mean, that's huge. And like you said, it really impacts your bottom line, which it is a business.
It is a business. You know, and the thing is these dogs, like I mentioned earlier, they're absolutely pleasant animals to live with. So, of course, they're by the very nature of the work that they do and their breeding, they're very independent thinkers, though. So sometimes the dogs and I will have a disagreement about what should be happening. But, you know, the way that it works is I try to influence them, but they have a vote as well, you know, so because they are out there with the herd 24 hours a day, year-round. I mean, even when it's a blizzard outside and it's frigid temperatures, you know, our wool sheep, so they're covered with beautiful wool coats, but the dogs want to be with their sheep. They don't want to come into the buildings here at the ranch. They're out there all the time in the elements, so.
Wow, what's their life expectancy?
You know, I think for a lot of the dogs, of course, the larger breed of dogs seem to have a shorter lifespan in the first place. But I think for a lot of working livestock protection dogs, it's probably going to be from like 5 to 8 years. So it's relatively short, but it's a very vigorous life that they lead, and the hazards to their lives are substantial and every day. I mean, I've had a moose kick a dog in the chest and break its sternum, and you know, and there's every year we have other producers here that have dogs that are killed by wolves while they're in the process of protecting their herds. You know,
yeah, I was wondering about that and what you do in the middle of the night when you do hear that they are getting into some kind of violent activity with predators. What do you do?
Well, when I can hear that it's more than just the routine warning barks, that there's actually a conflict, of course I try to go out and see what's happening, and usually using a truck with spotlights so that I can see, and usually that is enough to disrupt whatever is happening. Mm-hmm. You know, but in reality, when things are happening during the night, it's not like you can really go out with a gun and attempt to shoot something, because it's too dangerous. You don't want to shoot your dog. You don't want to shoot any of it, So really just making noise and shining light is usually enough to shut whatever the activity is down. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, well, that's what I was wondering, how you responded to support them. Yeah.
Yeah, and of course those are then for the rest of the night. It's quite sleepless nights, and I've spent plenty of nights sleeping in the middle of my herd as well. So that's just part of the life as well. So
yeah. Well, and you also write a blog, Wolf Watch.
Yeah, it's kind of a wolf news site on just different things that are happening kind of on the ground with wolves. So, yeah, I've been doing that for quite a long time. Just, people like to have information about wolves and different wolf packs and the things that are going on. So I somewhat neglect my blog. I only get to it a couple of times a week. But, yeah, I try to keep current news things posted on there.
That's great. And you contribute to another blog, too, right? A nature blog?
Yeah. Steve Bodio is a great nature writer out of New Mexico. And he has a blog that there's 4 of us are contributing writers. And there's a lot of information on there about, one of Steve's a falconer. Another one of the contributing writers is a falconer. Another is an archaeologist. And then I am the Wyoming rancher. So it's kind of all about people who live and work in the outdoors doing various things. So it's pretty varied, the things that we write about. But, yeah, it's been a fun blog to do, so...
Yeah. Well, how would our listeners access those blogs?
Okay. www.CatUrbigkit.com, CatUrbigkit.com. And that'll take you to my website, and you can find all the links that you need there to everything that I'm writing for, as well as to links to some of my books.
Oh, great. Well, we'll be sure and include that on our site so that our listeners can access that. And you also participated in a PBS program.
Yeah, I was pretty thrilled. Just within the last month or so, the Wyoming PBS asked me to come in and do an interview. It's a half-hour interview on Wyoming Chronicle is what it's called, and they had me on to talk about living with these dogs and the sheep, and the fact that I write books based on everything that I see and do here on the Wyoming Sheep Ranch. So it was an absolute pleasure to have the opportunity to go on and do that. So.
Yeah, PBS. I know that's when you have arrived as a serious whatever profession you're in. It's when you get to be on PBS.
Yeah, and I was fortunate. I also got to be on National Public Radio, All Things Considered, a few years ago. And I actually had an NPR guy came out and spent some time with me here on the ranch. And it was funny. We went to check the sheep in my sheep camp, and I had a litter of 10 of these guard dog puppies that had just had an encounter with a porcupine. So Jeff Brady with National Public Radio was very patient with me because it's like, excuse me, but I have to drop down on the ground and catch each one of these dogs and pull these quills out right now.
Yes.
It was great. It was actually part of his program was the sound of me cooing to the pups as they whined as I pulled the quills out of them. So, that's part of the learning process for these pups. Some of them learn better than others.
Well, and that's the reality of your job. You have to you can't wait. You have to address it right then.
Yes, and that's, it's funny. We make plans about things, I make plans about what it is I'm going to do today, and then I go outside with the animals and then find out what it is that I'm really going to do that day.
Yeah. Well, I know that in the book you talk about the impact of environmental protection policies that block off land from its traditional human uses. And tell us, Kat, what you learned about that through your work as a shepherd.
Well, it all started really from going out and walking with the sheep and dogs and realizing that reflecting as I'm doing that people have done this for thousands of years all over the world. That as I walk through the sagebrush here in Wyoming and I reach my hand down and pet a dog's head as it's walking next to me, or have the dog come up and lean against my leg as I'm walking, that there are thousands of years of breeding that have gone into that. And so I started doing some research about the countries of origin where these dogs came from. And especially in Central Asia, I mean, it's been thousands and thousands of years, and these people that have lived in such close association with their livestock and guardian dogs. And then I started reading about them now, that there are, it's just like, I think it was probably a week or so ago, I see that the Maasai cattlemen, that they're having more areas that they're blocked from, because really ecotourism has become such a very popular thing, that the native people and their traditions are being locked out of their traditional lands. That these lands are being set aside as reserves or national wildlife areas for tourists to come and enjoy, and not the native people that have relied on that for their subsistence living for years. And as I was doing research on the book, I found that was really happening all over the place. And of course, here in the Rocky Mountains where I live, I see every once in a while I'll see this press release come through, or a newspaper account of, this livestock allotment has been closed to livestock grazing so that it can be set aside for use as for grizzly bears or something. And it's the same type of thing, that we have people that have, lived with livestock and especially in range conditions here, like we have in the western United States, that, people move with the seasons with their livestock. And it seems like we're shutting down more and more places instead of keeping them open to a variety of uses. And I hate to see the loss of these traditions, even if the traditions are only, in the United States, only a couple of hundred years old. So
yeah, and I think we think that we're protecting it by making it supposedly protected, but like you said, it keeps it from a variety of uses, and knowing what those uses are and how they impact the ecosystem and how we function, I think, is really important.
That's been one of the great things about actually being out on the range with the sheep and dogs, is that it's kind of funny to me. Sage grouse are a species that they're talking about. There's concern about perhaps they should be listed as an endangered species or something. In the areas where my sheep and dogs are, the sage grouse have pretty well figured out that they're safe from coyotes or something. So we actually have thriving grouse populations where the sheep are grazing with their livestock protection dogs, because our dogs actually will push the coyotes out of an area. And so that the coyotes are not then preying on the sage grouse or their nests. So, and it's the same kind of thing that we have a lot of pronghorn antelope where we're at as well, and it's always a joy to me to see the little does come into my herd, and they kind of stay right at the outskirts of my herd, but they'll come in when they're ready to give birth. And because that's the kind of the buffer area around my sheep is protected. My dogs are going to keep the coyotes out of there, so the antelope fawns are under, a lot less danger.
Yeah, well, I'm sure they feel much safer there, and they've been watching, so they know how much your guardian dogs are really guarding those animals, and I'm sure they feel that and appreciate that. Yeah.
Then my guardian dogs just look at the antelope, and they don't really care. It's like they understand that these animals are no threat. There's no reason to get excited about them, although they watch them run. They watch the antelope run just as I do. Those are amazing animals to watch. So
yeah, they are gorgeous. They are. Well, are you working on another book now? I know this one's just come out, but are you thinking about your next book?
Yes, I'm thinking about my next several books. I actually have a contract for my next book. It will come out in the fall of 2014, and it's actually called When Man Becomes Prey, and it's based on 5 North American predator species and kind of the way that they're managed and some of the attacks that have occurred on humans and some of the animal behavior issues that indicated that some of those attacks were going to happen, or that there was an elevated risk of attack. So that's the book that I'm working on at the moment, but I am determined to write another livestock protection dog book after that.
Oh, good.
And it won't really be a how-to book or anything like that, but more of stories and photographs of good livestock protection dogs that I've known over the years, and just kind of tell some of their stories and help to share really what heroes these dogs are. I mean, they have my absolute adoration. They're amazing animals, and I feel like I am so lucky to get to live with them on a day-to-day basis, and I'd love to, share that with others.
Well, you are, Kat. They sound amazing, and thank you for educating us about them. And we look forward to many books from you. You'll have to come back and visit with us again.
Great. I would sure love to, Marcie.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you to our listeners. As always, our time goes by too fast, but we're glad you could be with us, and we're so glad that Kat joined us today to talk about her amazing livestock protection dogs. And if you want more information about Kat, don't forget about her website, and I'll say it one more time. It's www.CATURBIGKIT.com, and we'll definitely have that information for you on our website. And we hope that you'll come back and join us again soon. And you can also follow me and Whistle on our blog, workinglikedogs.com, and keep those emails coming. We love to hear from you. And you can email us at Marcie, MARCIE, at PetLifeRadio.com. So thanks so much, and take good care.
Let's Talk Pets, every week on demand, only on PetLifeRadio.com.